Hey everyone, we're going to continue building our portfolio page. If you haven't checked out part 1 of this, go ahead and click on the link above, and that covers the first section of the portfolio, which is the big splash with your picture and your title as well. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the About Me section, and I'll cover what that is and what we're going to be doing today next. All right, welcome back. My name is Jeff at Learning Dojo, and if you haven't checked out my website, go ahead and check out my website at LearningDojo.ninja. Here you can check out previous blog posts, including the portfolio part 1. You can also check out templates on Storyline and XAPI. You can also check out full courses on Articulate Storyline 360, Adobe Captivate, XAPI Fundamentals, Articulate Rise, Custom SCORM, and HTML5 video. Today we're going to be continuing to build using Webflow our portfolio. Again, if you haven't checked out part 1, go ahead and check out part 1 here. But I'm going to go back into Webflow and we're going to go into my portfolio, which in this case is portfolio 3. But for now, I'm going to go into portfolio 2 here and just show you exactly what we're going to be building. So last time we built this section, but if you start to scroll down, now we're going to build this new section, which is the About Me section that has a picture, a little bit longer of a picture here. It could be a different picture if I wanted it to be, but right now I'm just using the same picture here. And then also the About Me that has some information about me, and then a download resume there. And then in upcoming videos, we're going to talk about building kind of our portfolio work here. All right, I'm going to go back into my dashboard here. And I'm going to go back into the portfolio 3 and let's continue to build out the next section. So I have an image already downloaded. You may need to have an image there, but now let's go ahead. I'm going to expand this out here. What we need to do is build another section. In the last section, we went ahead and added this viewport height that's going to take up the full height. That doesn't mean that I can't scroll down. If there's more content, I can scroll down and it's just going to take up the height of whatever the initial view is. There could be, much more that goes beyond that page, but that height is going to be automatically taken up, and on your device, it's going to take up whatever the height is of the device. And as you start to flick your finger down and go down, it will have additional information there. All right, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on this eyeball here. We're going to add a new section. In this section, you can see I can't really drag inside of this existing section. I have to come down below and drag it below there. Now I can scroll down and I can see this space right here. Another way of doing that, if I hit undo, another way of doing that is by grabbing this section and actually going into the navigator. And if you do that, then it allows you to drag very specifically where you want this to be. Now I can have it above this other section, or I can have it below this section. Right now, it doesn't allow me to drag it below here, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And so let's just go in and just drag it below all the way to the bottom there. And so that way it can be below here. Now this will expand out, and most HTML content, the wrapper around it or whatever parent it is, will basically take whatever height of content that you put inside of it. So what we need to do is put in some content, and that's where we start to use some of our additional layout. We're going to add a container because we want to have some padding in the left and the right. We don't want it to take up the full width like this one did. This one is taking up the full width, but down here, we don't want it to take up the full width. I don't like, however, how small this width is. It doesn't really go beyond that unless you change some of the CSS styles. So coming over to the right-hand side, if you go to max width here, you can go ahead and up that to 1,000, and that will expand it out. So if you wanted to do 1,200 or so, I think by default it may be like 900 max width is the default container there, but now I can expand it out just by adjusting that max width. All right, so I'm going to come in here and now I'm going to split this up, because if you remember in the portfolio, we had columns. We had an image on the left-hand side, we had text on the right-hand side. By default, if I start to add an image here and then some text, it will just position it right below the image. It won't position it side to side. So that's where columns come into play. If you go in and you drag the column section here, it's going to pop open with different column options. Now you can see 3 columns, 4 columns, 2 columns, but one column is bigger than the other. And that works for this case. You could also even drag your own custom just by clicking this bar and dragging from side to side. If I click Show All Settings, it will go into the settings area, the column settings, and then I can also adjust this as needed. Tablet portraits, phone portrait, you can see exactly what's going to happen here. So on tablet portrait, it's going to be side to side. But on phone landscape, it's actually going to take this column, whatever's on the right-hand side, and it's going to position it below. That's one of the nice things about columns is on the bigger screen sizes, it's going to place content side to side. But as soon as you go below that size, it's going to take the content on, usually on the right, and position it below and have it be responsive. Let's go ahead and adjust this to like a 5, 7 is great there. And now I'm going to drag an image inside of the column, the first column. And now I'm going to click on Choose Image. And we're going to upload an image, that image that I have on my desktop here. I'm going to upload that. And there we go. So now it's placed it automatically there. Now I'm going to place some text on the right-hand side, and then we're going to do some modifications. So I'm going to have a heading here. And so let's say, get to know me. And then I'm going to have some text right below it. Now this is going to be some paragraph text. So it automatically adds some lorem ipsum for me. Now right below that, I could have some additional information like name and contact info and everything like that. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and add a button. So if I come down and add a button, oh, it looks like I passed it. There we go. And this is going to just, if I double click into this, this is just going to be download resume. We have a couple things that is an issue here. First of all, there's no padding between this image and what's on top here. And then this image is pretty large, so let's go ahead and resize it. If I select the image, I can grab that little square down at the bottom right-hand side, and I can resize it and make that a lot smaller there. Our image really isn't centered, and we have a lot of spacing there, which is fine. We'll fix that later. But if I click in this section area, what I want to do under my style is I want to add some padding. I want to add some padding on the top and the bottom, and so it's not right up against the edges with other sections here. Now, if I go into the padding and I hold down Option on a Mac, or if I hold down Control on a PC, it will, and I click and I drag, it will add padding on the top and the bottom section as well. So it added 30 pixels on top and it added 30 pixels on bottom. If I hover over the padding, you'll notice the green bars that go on top and go on bottom. That's how I can tell where the padding is. I don't necessarily need to add padding on the left and the right because we already have this kind of centered in the middle already, so we're good there. Let's say I wanted to make this center here, or at least fix this a little bit, or maybe make this column a little bit bigger. I could come back into the column settings, and now that I have the image in there, I know that I don't need as much space, so I can click and drag this and move that over a little bit more. That's one way of doing it. Or by clicking into that column, we can do something similar to what we did above here. We can actually make this a Flexbox, and then we could center our content in the middle. And now it basically has it centered inside of that entire column. So even if I adjust the size of that column later on, it's going to keep that centered in the middle. And that's one of the benefits of the Flexbox there. Now, inside of here, I could come in and add some more margin. Padding is the space inside of an object. Margin is the space outside of an object, spaced with other objects as well. So let's say I wanted to push this button down. Well, if I select, I can either add some margin to the top of the button, or I can add some margin to the bottom of this paragraph. Either way works. And you can see that there's already some margin on that paragraph, and I can just expand that out a little bit more by clicking and dragging. So that's one way. But let's say I wanted to have my text kind of centered in the middle of this image here. I wouldn't want to add the Flexbox to this. What I would want to do is add a Flexbox to the column section. If I select this, or if you're inside of the column here, this kind of gives you the hierarchy of where objects are at. We have column 2, but then columns, and then container. Now you always want to add the Flexbox to the, if you're going to align content and position content, you add it to the parent, and then you can start aligning things from the parent there. So under the columns, which is both of my columns there, I can go ahead and convert that to a Flexbox, and then I can come in here and say align is going to be centered. By doing that, it's now centered my text in the middle of this image. So even if I resize that image, it's going to keep that text centered in the middle, which is pretty nice. If you don't want that to happen, you don't need to convert it to a Flexbox, so just keep that in mind. But that's really what a Flexbox does, is it allows you to position, left, align, other things like that a little bit easier. Now watch what happens. As soon as I go down here, we have a little bit of a problem on the padding on the sides. We didn't before, and that's why we didn't add padding before, but that's why you also want to check to make sure everything looks good on mobile. And so now we know that we need to have padding, but I'm going to add it at this level. I'm not going to add the padding on the other level, because you want to, first of all, design it for the largest size, and then go ahead and adjust it, because it will cascade down. Anything that I adjust here, maybe I just adjust it on the tablet landscape instead of the tablet portrait and so forth. So I'm going to come into this section and I'm going to add some padding, and I can hold down the option button and it will do it for both sides. But we're going to add some padding on the left and the right, which is also going to be 30 there. And you can see that looks a little bit better. Let's try the mobile landscape here. And I may want to adjust this. Let's go ahead and adjust that down to 33. Maybe even a little bit more, 30. And there we go. So that looks better. And then going down to the phone size, you can see that we have a little bit of a problem. This is actually not adjusting down to the phone size. And I think it's because we adjusted that to a Flexbox. So I may want to remove the Flexbox from there. Or I may want to, at this point, have this wrap. Actually, yeah. Let's check this. Yeah, at this size right here, if you just have it wrap, it's going to wrap it and push it down before. I didn't need to do that if I was just going to stick with the regular columns, but because I made it a Flexbox, that's why I need to actually at some point define it as a wrap. So we're good there. Let's go back out to the desktop and let's add a little style to our image. I want it to pop out a little bit more. So I can come over to the right hand side and I'm going to add a drop shadow. So coming into box shadows, we're going to add a drop shadow on the outside. We're going to have the distance not be 1, we're going to have the distance be 0, so that way there's a shadow, kind of even shadow all the way around the image. We can make it a little bit larger, but then also have the transparency. If I come down and click on the color, I can have the transparency of the shadow be a little bit more transparent there. The blur, if I wanted to adjust the blur, you can kind of adjust that here as well. And that makes it look a little bit better. In fact, if I click over here, you can see that the image kind of pops out a little bit more. Let's say I wanted to have this have a border as well, so it looks like one of those old Polaroids. I could actually even add a border here if I come over to the border section and I adjust this to 5, for example, and I adjust the, well, that's the radius, but let's have this, the width be 5 pixels, and then let's change the color to be more of a white. So you can see right here, now we have this border, and this is more even. If I really wanted it to be even, let's go to the bottom and let's have this be 25. And you can see now it adds a little bit more of a border on the bottom than the top or the right-hand side. I don't know if I'm convinced on that style, but that looks good for now, so I'm just going to keep it right there. Now I could add more sections to this as well. So if I come in here, you could have columns within columns. So if I needed to split this out and I wanted to have some additional content, I could actually just drag another column inside of here. And now I can provide my details like my phone number, my email, and so forth, and kind of split it up as well. I'm not going to do that in this video, but that's just something to keep in mind. You could have columns within columns. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as this. We have a get to know me section. I could have a title above the columns if I wanted to as well, but I'm going to leave it at that. You can stylize the title and so forth. And let's actually, I want to change this color to be slightly gray there instead of dark. And there we go. So that's the About Me section. In the next video, we're going to talk about the different projects that you can add. And there's a couple steps to that as well. We're going to create symbols and use symbols inside of Webflow. We're also going to use grids to handle the layout. And this is very helpful when you're having different images and icons and other things like that, and you want it to be more of a uniform layout. Grids comes in handy for that kind of thing. So we still have plenty to cover in our portfolio, but that's at least the About Me section, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction to the different columns and images and styles of the image as well. Thanks for checking this out. And again, if you haven't checked out my website, go back to LearningDojo.ninja. Check out my blog for other sections here and other topics on XAPI and Storyline. You can go into my templates and download Storyline templates and XAPI templates, or check out full courses on Articulate Storyline 360, XAPI Fundamentals, Adobe Captivate, Articulate Rise, Custom SCORM, HTML5 video, and more. Hopefully this is useful for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, everyone.